My name is Susan Inman, and I'm going to be moderating the family panel. I'm going to now get a chance to hear from Erin Emiru.
Thank you. Every time I see my psychiatrist, I shut down. I know he cares, but he asks the questions he must, and I soon feel like a disjointed collection of symptoms for him to pick out and medicate. 10 minutes later, a half hour late, I emerge to find myself talking out loud to myself in an effort to regain a connectivity between the person I know I am and the person he provokes. This is very common for me to shut down in the presence of a psychiatrist. Ironically, when I shut down, they sometimes interpret that as my mental illness. And I do. I have paranoid schizophrenia. And it's true when I'm ill, I repeatedly shut down altogether. I end up on the psych ward, and neither nurse nor psychiatrist, not family or friends, can really engage me. I'm lost in my world of voices, paranoia, and delusions. I'm terrified. I think there's microscopic rats in my brain eating my brain. And I think that a tracker had put a tracking device in my abdomen and was going to shoot me down with a sniper gun. In the hospital, the only way to get rid of the rats is to bleed them out. And so on my many certifications, I sit against the concrete wall and bang my head repeatedly, trying to bleed the rats out. Code white, code white. Security officers come running. Once again, I'm restrained, and I'm given injections of sedatives and antipsychotics. Why should I trust a system that does this to me? Not once, not thrice. I lost track after a dozen or so episodes over my 11 involuntary treatment under the Mental Health Act. Some medications helped, some didn't, and I am usually there, be it PAU, VGH, UBC, St. Paul's, Riverview, or the Nova Scotia Hospital back in Halifax, for at least a month at a time. In there I'm labeled chronic, severe, and refractory. One psychiatrist went so far as to tell me I would never be a productive member of society. I wish I could remember which one said that to me, but it's all a blur. Throughout these tumultuous years of shutting down, I was unable to advocate for myself. My parents, who lived on the East Coast while I was here on the West, offered support and phone calls and offers to come visit me, but I refused. I just couldn't let anyone in. How heart-wrenching it must have been for them, with me with flat affect, +++ in the notes, and loss of spontaneous speech. I answered their questions with monosyllabic responses, if that. I was too overwhelmed to let anyone in. And in doing so, I lost their valuable advocacy. I refused to let them talk to my psychiatrist, thinking that intervention was conspiracy. When the contact was made without my consent, I felt violated and powerless. But where did my rights to privacy and parental advocacy begin? Shut down, I cannot advocate my rights. Should more involuntary intrusion on my life be made without my input? After, when appropriate doses of antipsychotics coursed from their pills to my brain, I awaken from my shut-down schizophrenic state. The hospitalization continues, but now I can see and jump through the hoops my psychiatrist holds out for me along the road to decertification. I begin to advocate for myself, for my ride up the privilege ladder. The analogy I like to use is this. Imagine you're in a swimming pool and you can't touch the bottom and you can't swim. You're flailing, thrashing, just struggling for a breath, and all you can focus on is the immediate survival instinct. But then imagine a table being put in that swimming pool. You can stand, your head's above water. Crisis is over. For me, that table is medication. Without it, I'm drowning in my schizophrenia, but with it, I can stand up, stand tall, and not only can I breathe now, but I can also talk, I can sing, I can ask for help. I can engage with my therapist or my psychiatrist maybe even. I can self-care and seek interactions that provoke a greater quality of life for me. I'm therefore an advocate for the use of involuntary treatment. Even though I abhorred it in the moment, I don't think I deserved days in the cells they call the quiet rooms. I didn't deserve to be tied down to a stretcher, unable to move. I didn't deserve involuntary injections of sedatives and antipsychotics. As much as I didn't like them in the moment, and it's hard for me to recall them now, I know that it saved my life on several occasions. I now work as a peer support worker with one of the ACT teams that we've heard about, ACT 2. My clients often open up to me and not the psychiatrist first. I hear, "Don't tell Dr. So-and-so, but," "I haven't told anyone, but," or "I can't tell the team, but." The hardest part of my job is that line between tattletale and secret keeper. I talk to my clients weekly. I talk to their psychiatrists, and I often hear two very different stories. I therefore am able to be a strong advocate for those clients. For one, I push the doctor to further medicate one of my clients' depression. He admitted to me on several occasions that he is excellent at putting on a happy face, and it took a lot of advocacy on my part for them to know that he wasn't the happiness he presented. On the other hand, I've advocated for a reduction in medication for one of my clients. He was over-sedated, sleeping 18 hours a day, and had no quality of life. He was rapidly moving towards depression. I try to tell the team, we don't have to medicate every little part. Sometimes, and I speak from experience, it's better to live with some symptoms, not overwhelming ones, not the crises, but some symptoms they're worth living with in order to have a quality of life. Finally, a time when people who knew me somewhat advocated on my behalf. I had fled my apartment because I knew the police were going to come pick me up because my case manager had just told me I was about to be certified again. I wasn't well, and I'm going to read one page from my book that illustrates it. This is When Quietness Came, a Neuroscientist's personal journey with schizophrenia. It was published 4 years ago, and I'll read it from it. The plan I devised amid my delusions involved reviewing the pages of the neuroscience faculty at UBC and choosing 6 whose research interests involved neuroregeneration, the repair of damaged neurons, or neurogenesis, the creation of new neurons. Excited, I drafted an email. Dear researcher, I am a PhD student in the neuroscience program and have a research proposal for you. By way of background, my brain is being eaten by microscopic rats that live inside my skull. The issue that should interest you is that after this consumption, my brain regenerates. I realize that this is a unique ability and assume that researchers such as yourself would be intrigued by this. This, along with other pertinent questions, will be answered by rigorous research. I therefore hope that you will take the time and consider this project. In order to ensure that the rats consumed enough brain for there to be substantial regeneration and neurogenesis afterwards, I've decreased the amount of medication I am taking, as the medication causes the rats to go into hibernation. Within a few weeks, there should be peak neurogenesis and neuroregeneration. Finally, I assume that you will want both in vivo and post-mortem analyses. If you are interested, please let me know when you can scan my brain, and afterwards, I will find out the best way to kill myself so that I can donate my brain for further study. Timing will be important. I realize that this is a considerable sacrifice on my part, but the deep meaning has chosen me, and I cannot ignore that allowing the study of my brain may reveal ways of initiating regeneration and functional recovery in patients with central nervous system damage in which repair is presently impossible. The personal cost is therefore of little importance in this light. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to hear from you soon. So, I I heard back from one researcher. She had served on my master's committee and remembered me. So she, via email, invited me to her office to speak to me. Remember, at this point, I was not going back to my home. I had been not home for 4 days at this point and classified as a missing person by my supervisor. They had talked together, and it was arranged for her to email me. So I went to her office thinking that we would discuss this amazing research proposal I had. But instead, she starts talking about the meaning of life and about the blessing of my own life. I didn't understand why. And while I listened to her, I waited to talk about the experiment. I noticed 2 students who were hovering around her doorway. I thought they were rather rude to be waiting while I was talking to her. Then they came in, VPD, plainclothes, and a mental health nurse. I was handcuffed, brought to hospital again. Later, I went and thanked her. She is among the many people I now recognize as caring enough to advocate for that blessing that is my own life. I may have schizophrenia, but I am definitely not a member of society that doesn't contribute. Thank you.